I thought I knew how to work out until I met this guy. I didn't know how to work out. Believe me, like he knows as much about weightlifting as I do about grappling. Like, and that's why I think, he's going to be a blessing for the channel as I'm hurt, because we're going to go through now some things that you form, and some basic splits, and what you should be thinking about in terms of when to take sets to failure, how much volume you should be looking at. Because in other words, like, it's not how many reps, it's where do you take those reps.
Correct.
So welcome back. Sorry it's been a while. We planned on grappling in other places, but people don't like being filmed. And then I broke my rib, so I've been out.
And I didn't do it.
Yeah, he did not do it. He wasn't getting me back for slamming me. So I have mentioned this before on the channel in words, but I like written words, but I didn't talk through it. Dom is a bodybuilder. He's been a bodybuilder for a long time. Retired now, but
Yes, definitely retired.
But so Dom started wrestling in high school?
In high school.
And then did you work out in high school?
A little bit, just because I was a small guy, 115 pounds, 120 pounds, wrestled at 119 and 125. And then the grappling bug had always had me, but working out, that was my passion for a long time.
So when did you start lifting then, seriously?
When I was in the military, actually. Joined the military after my first year coming out of Eastern. Didn't know what I really wanted to do. Went in the Air Force, and there's not a lot to do.
But you wrestled at Eastern,
yeah,
in the wrestling club there,
yes,
right? Or the grappling club.
The grappling club.
Yeah, and so this is Eastern Michigan University. You're a Michigan native,
correct?
Right. So yeah, so Dom was a very successful bodybuilder. So Mr. Michigan Championship, that's a state championship,
correct?
Title, right?
Yeah.
So you won that 4 times.
4 class winners. Overall, Mr. Detroit. Central States champion, and when I was out west in the military, Armed Forces National Championship, won my class as a lightweight, and then Mr. Albuquerque.
So how many years did you bodybuilding?
From 92 until 2010.
Wow.
That was my last show, and that was a rehab show. I had a couple bad injuries, torn quad, and made a hard run at it, and I was fortunate to have a good group of friends and good family around me, and powered through it.
Yeah, so injury is the thing we want to talk about a lot, actually, because when I first met Dom, it was at the Grappling Academy, Ursa Academy, that we train at in Ann Arbor, and we were doing jiu-jitsu. And I don't think I knew him for very long before maybe a year and a half or so.
Yeah, about a year and a half.
And then I developed what's called weightlifter shoulder. And
bencher shoulder.
Yeah, so right, so the end of your clavicle, the end of your collarbone actually wears away, and it's a lot from your shoulders rolling forward, right?
Correct.
Like having 2 strong anterior delts for the back, for the posterior delts. And I went to rehab, didn't work for 6 months or something.
Correct.
Like that?
Yep.
So then I was like talking to him, and he right away was like, listen, they're giving you rotator cuff exercises. That's not going to help you. You need to build your rear delts. And so he got me doing some exercises, and only within a few weeks, even like a month, I already started noticing, and I wasn't noticing any difference before that point. And it was really painful. I mean, like even picking my kid up to put her in the car, anytime my arm went across my body, it just hurt so bad. And so I couldn't roll. I rolled on it for way longer than I should have.
Yeah.
And anytime I would frame, it would just hurt really bad. And so that was a huge part of is lifting weights to recover. If you're older, that's one thing that I really want to talk about a lot. We're going to do a series of videos. Dom has a ton of knowledge. And one thing I hadn't thought about was that bodybuilders have to work out through their injuries because they don't want to lose any muscle.
Correct. And you start to accommodate in workarounds. When a good example is I broke my wrist in the military, but it didn't stop me from training legs.
Oh, right.
I still could, even with a cast. I did some things that you start to learn how to use shoulders and doing some posterior movements for the back, still keep, the muscle growing and training.
Yeah, actually, so he's got me doing some light stuff now. Took a few weeks off just to see how everything was going to heal. And then this last week, started just feeling it out. Was certainly can't do chin-ups. Chin-ups are out. I just tried even holding my body weight there. It's not going to happen because I broke the floating rib. And I didn't even know if it was in the front or the back really until I even saw the x-rays because it hurt everywhere. And there's still a lot of soft tissue pain. But as it turns out, like after that started to heal a little bit, I could, work with light bench, like 135 pounds. And just moving it so that I don't like lose, strength, some shoulder stuff, things where I don't have to twist and stuff. And again, it is, and this is what I want to get into. It depends on where you're at, right?
Correct.
So how many bodybuilding, or I should say, lifting weights for grapplers, things have you seen where it's just like do these exercises?
It's kind of endless.
Yeah,
Everyone has their own take. Everyone has their own little mix of what they think is the best solution. And the problem is with that, it's not a solution that fits everybody.
Right.
It fits a small group of people in a small age group that don't really have any injuries.
Right. Yeah. So if you're 20, right, and you're like, I have no strength and I want to get strong, then you would probably want to work with what would you say to that person? Would you want to do powerlifting?
No, actually, on a younger novice grappler that doesn't have a lot of weightlifting experience, I would usually stick them with basic compound movements. So you're working, not only are you working the muscle, but you're working connective tissue. A lot of guys, they want to get strong, they want to get big.
As fast as possible.
And there are ways that does happen. We all know about it.
So you get injured too, right?
And that's how they get injured. You'll see a lot of injuries. But for a basic amateur, doesn't have a ton of experience, basic movements, compound movements, you're going to strengthen the connective tissue, strengthen the tendons, start getting some hypertrophy in the muscle and working in that development.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about that because I know that I've read tons of things online. I'm part of some groups and stuff, and I see like they always recommend, oh, you should do, Olympic style liftings and all these kinds of things. And it's like, there's always this risk reward. I mean, I'm 43 now. Dom's what, 51?
50.
Yeah. So, and he works out all the time but he's changed the way that he's worked out over the years. He's not doing sets of 3 anymore, and I mean sets of 3 where like the third rep's the hardest thing to get, right? Like, and for me, ever since I had this shoulder injury, I've backed way off the heavy weights, and I hardly ever do a set under 6 reps now, maybe even under 8. I hardly ever do it unless I've really worked up to it in that day.
Correct.
And I've done a lot of volume. So that's one of the things you like is volume, right?
I'm a big fan, in my younger days when, I was mostly a kind of a power bodybuilder.
Right. So we talked about this too, right? About like, it depends on the person, right? So
yes.
So he used to like really heavy
leg training.
Right. And so it worked for him probably. And I know you guys don't want me to get down this rabbit hole. Okay. But like I teach muscle physiology is one of the things I teach at the university. People have different there are different muscle fibers. People have different muscle fibers.
Correct.
He might have a lot more of the fast twitch muscle fibers than I have because you have a lot. He has naturally a lot of power too, right? So like his max bench was way up there, and so you might never be somebody who can bench 500 pounds. It's just genetic,
correct?
Right? And then so if you do though have those abilities, then you can work on lower reps, and
correct.
you will build muscle. But somebody
yes.
like me, I can do practically anything to my legs, and they'll grow.
That is true. It's kind of amazing.
With like lightweight. I mean, just as a kid, when I was, you guys saw high school pictures, just as a kid at 18, 19 years old, 18 years old, never really, hardly ever lifted any weights. I mean, my legs were pretty big, and all I did was wrestle. And it was just from being in a stance and stuff. And I just genetically had those. But I have to do a lot if I wanted, until I started doing chin-ups, I wasn't really working out biceps. So in other words, so we'll go through. We should talk a lot about, not in this video necessarily, but a lot of different videos I want to put together. It's like, what types of exercises should you be doing? Like you probably aren't going to be doing a lot of curls, like, right? Because
I'm not, and obviously I don't have huge arms. I used
to be huge.
Well, and I never was a big, to be honest, I hated training arms. A lot of guys, I had friends, Monday was chest and arms. No matter what day it was, Monday, you saw half the gym, and I'm sure any of you guys walk into a gym now, Mondays, every bench is filled and every squat rack's filled, but no one's squatting. They're all using curls.
Right.
So, and for me, I wasn't a big arm guy.
Yeah.
I'd much rather train back.
Well, and for jiu-jitsu, if you're training multiple days a week, putting in isolation exercises probably isn't going to benefit you, like the compound lifts, so like chin-ups, bench press, and it depends. Flat bench press, I can't do flat anymore. And there was just one, we'll have a video on bench if you want. I want to do like all kinds of videos for take us through a chest and shoulder workout and a back workout and a leg workout. People say, oh, those are bro splits. And it's like, man, wait, I have some photos that I'll show you, like, of his physique. Believe me, you can build a physique this way. And in fact, even in my 40s, I've seen tremendous amount of difference. And it's not just the weights either, it's food. And I am terrible at eating a lot of food. I don't have a big appetite, so I've never grown much. And it was like eating clean food, but eating a lot of it. Anybody can eat junk and put on fat, but eating clean food and slowly seeing, if you're like 18, you're going to see gains super fast. If you're in your 40s like me, you're not going to see gains really fast because you've been lifting weights, or, well, maybe if you haven't been lifting weights, you will, right? But like the newbie gains. And so, but so really, the purpose of this video is just to point out, like, I wish I could tell you that there was a
magic formula
in terms of like, do these sets, do these reps, and then you'll grow or whatever.
Or you'll be a beast on the mat. A lot of it is what Joe has said too, is a lot of guys, and especially, going back to a lot of the fundamental videos that Joe put together, it's repetition. It's putting the work in and being disciplined, on the days we talked about. He had a video on what days do you have to train, days you don't want to.
Yeah.
And that follows through with mobility training, strength training, and if you're looking for
it's consistency.
Consistency.
It is so about consistency,
And the same thing with your diet.
That's a huge part. It's most of it.
Yeah, and especially if you're a hard grappler. If you're training and you're a younger guy and you're training 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, there's guys that train 8, 9 times a week. Nutrition is going to be your friend, and especially at that younger age, because as you get older, things start to tear down. It's tougher.
You need more protein.
You need more protein.
Yeah, that's a fact. You actually have a harder time with protein synthesis the older you get. And for me, he can eat like a chicken, like in a sitting.
I can eat a lot.
I can't eat that much protein. I get full, and I found, like, when he was like, you have to eat it. Like, if you want to put on muscle, if you want to recover, you have to eat it, because we were training, multiple days a week in jiu-jitsu, multiple days a week lifting weights and getting cardio in there. And by the way, more's not better either. So he's got a lot. Let's put it this way. I started lifting weights when I was like 17 seriously, so I don't lifted weights for like a year. When I was saying, like, by the time I was 18, my legs were already strong, and I was just a cut kid, but I wasn't like big or whatever. But I lifted weights through college. I lifted weights afterwards and stuff, and I sort of like, you quit making gains and stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, a good example is after Joe's injury, when I met him, he was in the high 59, 60 pound range. Yeah. And we've trained together for a little over a year and a half now. And I'd say a solid, and that weight's not going away, good 10 to 12 pounds.
Yeah, and I lost like...
And he lost a lot of body fat. I still need a lot more to go because I'm an eater.
The hardest part for me is the food. It's absolutely the hardest part. And fortunately, like, I still have a good metabolism and I train hard and stuff, but like, I thought I knew how to work out. That's what I was like, that's what I was getting at. Like, I started working out when I was like 17, and I thought I knew how to work out until I met this guy. I didn't know how to work out. Believe me, like, he knows as much about weightlifting as I do about grappling. Like, And that's why I think, he's going to be a blessing for the channel as I'm hurt, because we're going to go through now some things that you form and some basic splits and what you should be thinking about in terms of when to take sets to failure, how much volume you should be looking at. Because in other words, like, it's not how many reps, it's where do you take those reps.
Correct. And that's a big part of it.
Because you talked about, like, you could do 10 sets, but if you do 10 sets of 5, right, like, that might not be that much volume. But if you're doing more like 15 rep, which hurts bad, it's also very useful for jiu-jitsu.
Correct.
Like, more higher reps to get the blood flow.
And pushing that lactic acid buildup when you're getting that fatigue. And and a good example is, just yesterday, it was a tough training session. Long rounds and a lot of them. Cardio, we all got cardio from training, for the most part. But it's that extended late round where you're tired and you need that extra push.
Yeah, and if
you're used to that lactic acid burn, this is what comes into effect.
Yeah, mentally. Yeah, so there's the mental side.
And that's mental.
Yeah, right. But you want your muscles to work when you need them too, right? Like, if you're in competition and you will go harder than you're normally going, then, and the adrenaline can sometimes burn you out quick. You're gonna have that extra push, that you need. And when it comes down to, if you're in competition, are you really going to be like, oh, wait, like, I need to make sure my technique is perfect to get off the bottom? Like, I remember when I went from high school wrestling to college wrestling, and it was so hard to finish a takedown. You could get on people's legs and you could do things, and you could sweep somebody, and actually they could bounce. I had a guy from Army I always used to wrestle. I ran into him a bunch of times. I would foot sweep, lift him up with the high finish single, and he hit his butt and bounced back up on his foot. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. And so it was like, why do you think I keep teaching to wrap up the legs?
Yep.
Because I was like, you got to wrap up those legs and get your score and climb up the tree to get your, side control. And it was like, it didn't have to look pretty.
No.
I didn't have to make it look pretty. When you're in competition, you don't necessarily use everything.
Yep.
You want your strength, you want your endurance, and you want your technique, obviously, right? And so now, I'm gonna be out for a while. So Dom's gonna be taking us through everything. And,
and we're gonna push some videos on, like Joe said, splits, technique, and a little couple hints, tips with nutrition. Joe will put up. I don't follow as strict of a diet as I used to. I do enjoy and I do partake in a little bit extra calories here and there. I'm an older guy.
That's the other thing, by the way, you brought up before. You don't want to be 5% body fat. You don't have the power when you train jiu-jitsu. That was the worst mistake I made as a wrestler, was being too lean, because that's why I think I was better at freestyle than collegiate and high school and collegiate, because I was always trying to make the lowest weight class, and I was toast, especially by the end of the season. And so if you're trying to stay ripped all the time, like, because it looks good, there's a big difference between being strong and being ripped. And being strong and ripped, you're not doing that naturally, okay?
And that's where we're going to talk about that too.
Yeah.
Because there's some myths out there that the instant gratification, and it's not true. It still takes the work.
Yeah, you have to put work in. Gordon Ryan is a very big guy, but he's not sitting on the couch eating potato chips. He's putting a lot of work in. Yeah. And sorry for the long delay. Okay, things happen. Matt got too cold. It was like wrestling on concrete. We can't train anywhere else and record right now. And so we're going to record in Dom's.
This is my gym basement.
It's great. He's got leg press. He's got cardio. He's got a lot of stuff. I mean, like a lot of things happened in this gym. He built a career.
This is he's got a lot of mileage down here.
So thanks for watching, and tune in. We'll have some more for you in a little bit.